On this episode of ESL Uncensored, what would China be like today if Japan won the Sino-Japanese War? Tell me why this is the land of confusion. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of ESL Uncensored. So what would an alternate version of China be like today? Imagine, Pearl Harbor was never attacked and America for whatever reason never got into the war. So Japan wins the Sino-Japanese War and China remains under Japanese occupation to this day. It would be interesting enough to see what China would be like throughout the last 65 years under a puppet regime run by the Japanese, as well as what the Chinese society and economy would be like today. In a world where Japan wins the war, I can imagine China being run by a tyrannical one-party puppet regime where the Japanese emperor handpicks the official top leaders of Beijing, as well as every Chinese province. The Japanese puppet regime of China would use violence and abuses even more severe than those of the tyrannical Qing dynasty. Japan's puppet regime would have a philosophy that would be of struggle, and its rule would be built upon a series of them, both towards China and other nations. The first leader of a Japanese puppet regime would say, "What can Emperor Qin Shi Huang brag about? He only killed 460 Confucian scholars, but we killed 46,000 intellectuals. There are people out there who accuse us of practicing dictatorship like Emperor Qin Shi Huang, and we admit it all. It fits the reality. It's a pity that they did not give us enough credit, so we need to add to it." I also believe that a cultural revolution would happen in China as well under a Japanese puppet regime. Why? Because traditional Chinese culture would be inconsistent with the Japanese imperial belief system. Many traditional values of China going back thousands of years would be destroyed, and a cultural revolution would throw up an endless river flow of slogans such as "To rebel is justified," which would be very much the companion of "Smash the Four Olds." Around 1966, a cultural revolution would also involve people massacred in Daxing County. On top of this, you would also have cannibalism taking place in Guangxi. As part of a cultural revolution, such things could only happen to China only if Japan won the Sino-Japanese War. The Chinese Communist Party, however, is all about truth, cultural values, and morals. Because Japan lost the war and the Chinese Communist Party took power, no such cultural revolution could possibly happen in China. The Chinese Communist Party has been founded based on China's thousands of years of cultural heritage, original Taoist and Confucianist principles. The Chinese Communist Party was also founded based on truth, compassion, and tolerance. Yes, that's right. The Soviet Union has nothing to do with the CCP's existence whatsoever. Wow, it's a good thing Japan lost to the war. Can you imagine Tiananmen Square on June 4th, 1989, if people protested against a Japanese puppet regime in favor of freedom and democracy? You would have a very brave person standing in front of a row of Japanese tanks, and you would also see footage like this. But because Japan lost to the war, nothing happened. What kind of leader would Japan choose to lead China under a Japanese puppet regime in today's world? Certainly one who would cover up his history of being a traitor to the country. Imagine someone who during the worldwide anti-fascist war chose to pursue higher education at Central University in Nanjing that was established by the puppet regime of Wang Jingwei. This person would also happen to be the son of a high-ranking officer in the anti-China propaganda department of the Japanese army after Japan occupied Jiangsu province during the war. China today, ruled by Japan, would certainly handpick such a puppet leader for the country. Around this time, patriotic youths were sent to the front line to fight Japan and save China. The Chinese Communist Party in today's world would much rather select a leader for the country who was actually a patriotic youth who fought on the front lines in 1942 to save China. In other words, Superman, where are you now? Everything's gone wrong somehow. These men of steel, men of power, are losing control by the hour. On to more current day issues that would exist. Today we would have Chinese people forcefully evicted from their homes so their homes could be torn down for economic development. No compensation would be given to them at all. And every time petitioners travel to Beijing to petition the authorities of the Japanese puppet regime, they would all be rounded up and thrown into black jails. This sort of thing could only happen to people under a Japanese imperial puppet regime ruling China, certainly not under the Chinese Communist Party. On the other hand, we would also have migrant workers who just can't get ahead in life. I mean, migrant workers in China under what would be a Japanese puppet regime would be some of the most overly taxed people in the country. They wouldn't be able to get fair access to health care, and neither would their children. As a matter of fact, migrant workers' children wouldn't even be able to get a solid education, nor would they be able to get anywhere in life. In China ruled by Japan, migrant workers would always be migrant workers, and being a migrant worker would also be the fate of their offspring. Under the Chinese Communist Party rule, however, migrant workers and other peasants have excellent opportunity to change their fate for the better, for themselves and their children. Last but not least, under a Japanese puppet regime ruling China, foreign immigrants who immigrate to China as English teachers as well as other types of foreign expats would face discrimination. Settling down into society would be difficult. We would always be seen as outsiders. The education system of a Japanese puppet regime would teach people to always keep you at arm's length, be nice to you only to your face, and really have nothing to do with you. Social segregation, especially in the countryside areas, would be something that would affect every foreigner's life in a major way. Any conflict with a local Chinese person and a foreign local immigrant would automatically result in other locals ganging up on the foreigner and assaulting him, assuming it's always the foreigner's fault. Negative double standards would exist towards all foreign local immigrants. Because Japan lost to the war and a morally upright Chinese Communist Party took power, local foreign immigrants don't have to worry about it because under the CCP, the education system and media discourages racial bias and therefore promotes the truth that all of us as human beings really share the same dignity, integrity, and honor as each other. China has really strong anti-hate crime laws that protect minorities from discrimination, and foreign local immigrants who teach English in China also have all the same civil rights as locals. The Chinese Communist Party does not tolerate racism. So what do you all think? What would China be like today under a Japanese puppet regime in an alternate history where Japan wins the war? Leave your comments below. See you next time.